Your piano teacher, Tim here, and today I'm going to give you the very basic concepts you need as a piano player to understand music theory. Music theory, quite simply, is the theory about how music works, and by learning it, you're going to be a much better piano player. Let's get to it. Okay, before you can understand music theory, you need to understand some terminologies and basic concepts. This is actually part of a new series, so I will be coming out with a video that builds on the stuff we talked today. But the first thing you really need to understand is the concept of pitch. Now, pitch is really quite simple to understand. It's really how low or how high the notes are. So you can have notes that go ascending in pitch, or you can have descending in pitch. And just like on the piano, where when notes go up they get higher, same thing happens on the sheet music. Just like that. So pitch is how high or how low the notes are. Next thing I need to tell you about is the rhythm. Now, a rhythm is basically the timing of how you're playing the pitches. So let me show you. So I'm going to pick a pitch here. We're going to say E. So that's our pitch. And I'm going to play it in a certain rhythm. So I'm just playing E. I'm not playing any other pitches, just to make it simple. And say I play it like this. You know, I added a rhythm to it. It's like the timing on how it goes by. Even if I just play it, you know, real simple, you know, that is your rhythm. Let me write out a rhythm on the sheet music just to make sure you got it. This stuff, luckily, is generally pretty easy to understand. So if I just had, you know, 4 quarter notes here of B, that quite simply would be your rhythm. It doesn't really matter if you have like other notes in here, that's still rhythm, because the timing. So I would think about it like this, that pitches, on the staff anyway, are up and down. The rhythm is really a lot of times looked at horizontally. That's how I would think about it, especially if you are just starting out. So you've probably heard a lot about chords, and you need to know what those are to understand music theory. Well, we had pitches, you know, the notes up or down on the piano. However, a chord is when you're playing basically multiple pitches at the same time, generally 3 or more. So you can play any chord. I'm going to teach you how to play chords out the wazoo right now. So all you got to do is you got to play a starting note. And then what I recommend you do is skip a note, skip a pitch rather, play the next pitch, skip a pitch, play the next pitch, and you play them all together. Congratulations, you've played your first chord. And if you space them out like that evenly, the chord name is going to be whatever note is on the bottom. So we've now just played a C chord. If you want to play an F chord, you go to F, and you space out a chord there. You've played an F chord. You can do this anywhere. We can play a B chord, or a G chord, just like that, or an A flat chord. Now, it does get a little trickier than that, because there are many types of chords. And actually, when you do play them on different parts of the piano, it will change whether they are major chords, minor chords, maybe diminished, or the other type. So you do have to keep that in mind. But for today, in today's lesson, it's just simple music theory. You just play the starting note, you skip a note in there, boom, you got an A chord of some kind. Boom, you got a G chord of some kind. Boom, you got an E chord of some kind. So I just recommend for this first lesson playing up and down on the keyboard, kind of just experimenting with different chords. And just kind of like a preview into the next lesson, if a chord sounds bright and happy, it's major. If a chord sounds sad, it's minor. Now, it takes time to be able to hear those, but just throwing that out there if you want to work ahead a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to teach you about scales. You've probably heard a lot about scales. Maybe your teacher has made you play some scales before. This is the most simple explanation of a scale I can think of. So a scale is when you have a starting note. So say C, and you play up to that starting note where it occurs again, because as you know, there are many C's on the piano. They just repeat over and over again. And you play all the notes in between, or all the, basically the white keys stepping up in between. So congratulations, you just played your first scale. We played a C scale of some kind. Just how the chords work as well, if you start on a different note, play from that note up to that same note again, we've played a D scale of some kind. Now, just like the chords, there are different types that we'll have to talk about. But just for right now, the most simple explanation of a scale is that. So if you wanted to play some kind of G scale, start on G, up to the next G. Okay, this next part is where things get a little tricky, and they will get trickier in the future lessons as well. But I'm going to teach you about keys. Quite simply, a key, in the simplest form I can say, you've probably heard of playing in different keys, playing the key of G major, playing the key of F minor. So what does that really mean? Well, a key is the collection of notes you're going to most commonly find in a piece of music. So say we have the key of C, and we just played the C scale, happened to be the C major scale. So in that piece of music that's based around the key of C, or even the C scale, you're not really going to have a whole lot of sharps. So you're not really going to be dealing with a lot of those black keys. It's just going to be all white keys. And so say you had maybe the key of G, and I'll explain this more later. The key of G by definition, or the key of G major rather, has an F sharp. So that will occur both in the scale and the piece itself. It will give you what's called a key signature, telling you what sharps or flats to play. Now, a key can have either sharps, it can have flats, or it can have none at all. It cannot have sharps and flats. So what I mean by that is, like, you can have a key with 3 sharps, or you can have a key with 2 flats. But you can't have a key with 5 flats and 2 sharps, or 1 sharp and 2 flats. You can't have a combination of those. It's either sharps, flats, or nada, nothing at all. So that's really what you need to understand, is the very basic of what a key is. The collection of notes you're going to find commonly in a piece, and it's either going to have sharps in it or flats. Let me show you about key signatures to hopefully get a better understanding of this. Okay, so in your music, how are you going to tell what key you're in? Well, by what we call the key signature, which is basically a sharp or flat, or collection of sharps or flats written usually in the beginning of the piece. It can change key in the middle of the piece, however. And what this is telling you is, see, there's a sharp there on that top line. And if you had a note on that top line, hopefully you know how to read music. If not, I have lessons for that. That line is F. So what that is telling you is that all Fs in the whole piece are going to be F sharps instead. So instead of playing these guys, you're going to be replacing them with F sharps. Let me show you a couple more key signatures. Okay, so now we have a key signature. Instead, this time we have 3 sharps. We have, if we draw a line or a note where each of these is, you have the notes F, C, and G. And so that means when we're playing the piece, anytime I come across an F, it's going to be an F sharp instead, C, C sharp instead, G, G sharp instead. Now, you might be getting pretty confused by now, because I know I sure was when I first started learning this. So all you need to understand today, because like I said, I'm going to really go through this in a future lesson, is basically a key tells you what collection of notes you're going to have in a piece, and what those notes are is designated by what we call the key signature, which is like the visual representation of the key. And keys really apply to scales as well, as I quickly mentioned before, because so say you're playing in what they call the key of G major. The key of G major, by definition, has an F sharp in it. So when you're playing the G major scale, you want to make sure that you have that same note that's also designated in your key signature. Now, we're working a little bit ahead right now, and we're going to get more in detail about keys and things like this in the next lesson. But if you want, so eventually you want to memorize what all of your keys are. Like, you're going to memorize, like, okay, the key of G has 1 sharp, F sharp. Key of D has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. But if you don't have them memorized, I recommend you check out this website. Okay, this is key/notes.com. I will remember to put a link for you in the description here. So let's just kind of walk through this, and I'm going to kind of really explain what all of this means. So we're taking a look here. So say you want to play in the key of C major. Well, here's your key signature. This is the visual representation of what's going on here. There's nothing written here on the key signature at all. And what does that tell you? That tells you, and the accidentals are what sharps or flats you have. That tells you there's no sharps, no flats. And it makes sense because I showed you the C major scale in the beginning, and there were no sharps or flats in that scale. So for this week, just practice that C major scale. Let's continue. The next one down is the G major scale, or E minor. I'm not going to get into minors too much right now to avoid confusion. If you look to the left, it has a sharp there. Now, you're not going to be counting both the treble clef and the bass clef. You're only going to be counting one of them. So it's not two sharps there. It's really just one. And if you look between both clefs, it's the same note. So F sharp is the note that you have. And like I just said, the key of G major has one sharp, F sharp. Let's do one more. The key of D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So when you play them on the piano, anytime you have an F or anytime you have a C, you're going to be sharping it instead. So what I recommend you do is maybe for the first like 3 or 4 of these, go through on your own. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the key signature first on all the way to the left of the page. You're going to look at the key signature first. You're going to look at what key it's called. That's going to give you your starting note. So look at the key signature. Then say we're doing the C major one. Okay, it says C major, so I'm going to start on C. And then what you're going to do is you're going to play from one C up to the next C with any of the key notes in there. So if you don't have any, you don't have to worry about it. The next one, you look at the key signature. There's one sharp there, F sharp. You start on G this time. You play up to the next G, except you're going to play an F sharp. So that's one way I really recommend that you get used to playing in different keys, or getting used to, really digesting what keys are all about, is just going through this chord chart, or this scale chart rather, and then going through each one, kind of charting out where the sharps or flats may occur.
Look, you have to have a sense of priorities in any piece you work on.
Okay, and like I mentioned, this is part of a new series. I'm probably going to make maybe 4 or 5 lessons of these just to explain the very basics of music theory. So make sure that you check out the playlist right here once the other lessons are ready. Thank you so much for coming by today. It's been your piano teacher, Tim, here, and I'm going to see you, yes you, in the next lesson.